Welcome back to our channel. In 1968, the United States Mint stood at the crossroads of transition and tradition. The previous years had seen sweeping changes in the nation's coinage, spurred by economic pressures, a silver shortage, and shifts in minting technology. Just 3 years earlier, silver had been stripped from most circulating coins, and the country was still adapting to the new copper-nickel-clad compositions. The dime, once bearing the intrinsic value of silver, was now more of a symbolic piece of currency, its metal content no longer defining its worth. Amid this background of experimentation and high-volume production, the San Francisco Mint resumed striking coins for circulation after decades of dormancy. Precision was crucial, yet the speed of change allowed for moments, just moments, where something extraordinary could slip through undetected. From the surface, the 1968 Roosevelt dime appears ordinary, modest in size, unassuming in design. Franklin D. Roosevelt's profile graces the obverse, his features timeless and unchanged since the coin's introduction in 1946. The reverse remains faithful to John Sinek's vision, a torch flanked by olive and oak branches, each symbol meticulously engraved to capture unity, peace, and strength. Millions of these dimes poured out of mints across the country that year, each destined for vending machines, grocery store change jars, or perhaps a child's piggy bank. Few gave them a second glance. But in a quiet, cluttered room 3 decades later, a retired machinist turned coin collector sat beneath a yellowing desk lamp, sorting through a dusty canvas bank bag of old dimes he had once set aside. It had been a habit of his, ever since silver vanished from circulation, squirreling away rolls and rolls of coins, hoping that one day something might make it all worthwhile. He wasn't a numismatist in the formal sense. He never attended conventions or read price guides religiously. His passion was more tactile, more instinctual. He knew how things were supposed to feel, how precision revealed itself in the weight of metal, the edge of a rim, the subtle tension in a design that was struck just a hair too soft. And then he saw it at first glance. It wasn't that the coin looked damaged. It didn't have the telltale signs of wear or the rough abrasions of a damaged die. It was clean, almost suspiciously so. The year read 1968, and the familiar S. Mint mark lay beneath Roosevelt's neckline, crisp and neatly placed. But where was the rest of it? The letters, "In God We Trust," seemed too faint, almost ghost-like. The word, "Liberty," hugged the rim, but parts of it were missing, obliterated, as if swallowed by the edge of the planchet. The edge itself didn't appear fully struck, as though the collar had failed to hold it during impact. The details of Roosevelt's profile were unusually soft, and the reverse told a similar story. The torch lacked its sharp ridges, and the oak leaves seemed melted into the background. The collector blinked. He picked it up again, rotated it in the light, and felt his heartbeat quicken. This wasn't just weak striking. This was something else. He reached for his loupe and leaned closer, realizing what had happened. The coin hadn't been struck by a properly prepared die. The surfaces lacked the typical frosted detail. There was no trace of a minting press's final bite, no satisfying snap of design onto planchet. It was almost as though the dies themselves had been improperly mounted, or perhaps reused from a proof set without proper polishing or testing. He compared it to other 1968 S dimes he had stored, ordinary ones, gleaming and sharp. There was no mistaking the difference. This one felt like a whisper, a ghost of a coin that should never have entered the world. He took it to a local dealer, who gave it a cursory glance before shrugging and offering a token amount. "Probably a weak strike," he said. "Nothing to get too excited about." But the collector's instincts told him otherwise. He'd spent a lifetime around machines, and he knew when something mechanical had gone wrong. What he held in his palm wasn't a failure, it was a fluke, a brilliant accident, perhaps a transitional oversight. As the mint ramped up production that year, years passed. The coin remained in his collection, a personal enigma that no one else seemed to understand. But then, in the early 2000s, whispers began to surface on online forums. Other collectors had seen similar pieces 1968's dimes with faint details, almost proof-like in their lack of clarity, yet undeniably circulation strikes. Some bore die polishing lines, others had die clashes. A few even lacked mint marks entirely, though those were usually attributed to filled dies. The mystery grew. Auction houses started to take notice. One lot featured a 1968's Roosevelt dime with full steps missing on the torch, an exceptionally faint motto, and unusual softness on the devices. It sold modestly at first $70, then $120. The climb was slow, uncertain, like the coin's value was caught in a fog of misunderstanding. But something shifted when a collector submitted a similar coin to a top-tier grading service. The response was swift and shocking. The coin received a designation, an error, yes, but not a minor one. It was labeled a missing design elements due to die misalignment and improper striking pressure. Suddenly, the world took notice. Listings began to explode across collector circles. Coin clubs debated whether the issue stemmed from a misaligned press at the San Francisco Mint, or if these coins were the result of a brief test run where proof dies were improperly used for circulation pieces. Theories abounded. Some pointed to a transitional year in minting equipment. Others whispered of a hurried production cycle, a directive to use whatever tools were available to meet quotas. The uncertainty only added to the allure. Prices jumped. What once traded for pocket change now hovered near 3 digits, then 500, then more. But it was the twist no one saw coming that finally set the 1968's error dime ablaze. A collector in Oregon, who specialized in error coins, stumbled upon a variation that defied everything previously known. His specimen bore the same ghostly characteristics as others' muted details, fading letters, but also displayed a striking anomaly. Roosevelt's profile appeared doubled, not in the traditional sense of machine doubling, but a true doubled die. His eye, his mouth, the back of his neck each bore a shadow of itself, as though the die had shifted microscopically between strikes. He submitted it for authentication. The grading service confirmed it, a previously undocumented double die error, overstruck on a weak planchet using a deteriorated proof die. It was, essentially, an amalgamation of multiple errors in one coin, a convergence of minting mishaps so rare that its likelihood was less than 1 in several million. And yet, here it was, silent and small, rescued from oblivion by chance and curiosity. When the coin was put up for auction, expectations were cautious. Experts predicted a high 4-figure sale, perhaps 5 if bidding went wild. But as the night unfolded, and bidders from across the country joined in, the numbers crept higher. 8,000. 9. Then 12. The room fell silent when the coin reached $19,500, and then the final blow. A private collector from the East Coast placed a final bid of $22,000. The gavel fell. The story didn't end there. The sale ignited a frenzy. People began digging through their old bank rolls, resurfacing collections long forgotten in attic boxes and safe deposit drawers. Each faintly struck 1968's dime became a possible ticket into the unknown. Some were true errors. Others were ordinary coins caught in the wave of momentum. But the truth was clear. The 1968's dime had become a phenomenon, not for its beauty, but for its mystery. It was a reminder that even the most unassuming objects, forged in haste and hidden in plain sight, could contain secrets that time was waiting to reveal. For the machinist-turned-collector who first spotted the anomaly under the soft glow of his desk lamp, the experience became more than a personal triumph. It became a testimony to patience, to attention, and to the magic of small things. Though he never sold his coin, never sought acclaim or fortune, he watched with quiet satisfaction as the world finally caught up to what he had seen all along. And the coin? It remains a numismatic whisper, a faint echo of an imperfect strike that, in its flaw, became flawless in intrigue. The year was 1975. America was emerging from the turbulence of the early 70s, a decade marked by social change, political upheaval, and shifting cultural landscapes. The nation's economy was finding its footing after the oil crisis and inflation spikes, and everyday life, for many, carried the steady rhythm of routine and small comforts. Amid this backdrop, the United States Mint was quietly continuing its long tradition of producing coins that passed from hand to hand, pocket to pocket, a subtle thread weaving the everyday story of the country. That year, the dime, a small yet essential part of daily commerce, was struck in the familiar design that had graced its surface since 1946, the sharp profile of Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, a torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse. The Roosevelt dime symbolized perseverance, leadership, and hope, qualities the nation still cherished as it moved forward. Minted primarily in Philadelphia and Denver, the 1975 dime was ordinary on the surface, produced in vast quantities for circulation, destined for pocket change and cash registers alike. But in the routine hum of mass production, the unexpected sometimes slipped through. It was decades later that a seasoned coin collector, Michael, would stumble upon something unusual while sorting through a batch of dimes purchased from a local coin shop. Michael wasn't looking for anything special that day, just filling gaps in his collection, but as he held one particular 1975 dime under his loupe, a glimmer of intrigue stirred. The coin's features seemed off. The torch, the branches, even Roosevelt's profile, there was a faint doubling, a ghostly shadow beneath the primary design that suggested a mistake had occurred during the striking process. His heart quickened. Michael's eye, trained over years of study, recognized the telltale sign of a double die error, a phenomenon that happens when the coin die, the steel piece that imprints the design onto the blank coin, shifts slightly between strikes. The result? A doubling effect where images or lettering appear doubled or blurred, sometimes dramatically, sometimes barely perceptible. He flipped the coin over, examining the reverse side for similar anomalies. There, too, the branches and torch showed a subtle but undeniable doubling. The evidence was mounting. This dime was no ordinary 1975 issue. This was something rare, something collectible. Michael's mind raced with questions. How many others like this existed? Had collectors noticed this before? How would this discovery affect the coin's value? His curiosity became a quest. He plunged into research, digging through coin catalogs, forums, and auction records, piecing together the story of this error. The 1975 double-die dime was not well documented in popular numismatic references, at least not in the way some other famous errors were. This rarity had flown under the radar for decades, a hidden gem among millions of ordinary coins. Yet the few confirmed specimens known to collectors had already started generating whispers of excitement. Experts speculated that the doubling stemmed from a misalignment during the die hubbing process at the Philadelphia Mint, where the die was impressed twice with the design, but slightly rotated or shifted, causing the doubled images. Michael reached out to fellow collectors and error coin specialists. Some were skeptical, others intrigued. But as more collectors inspected their 1975 dimes under magnification, a pattern emerged. Several coins bore the same doubling traits. Slowly, the 1975 double-die dime began carving out a niche in the error coin market. As Michael watched this quietly build, the coin's value took on a life of its own. At first, the double-die specimens traded hands for a modest premium over face value, perhaps a few dollars more to the casual collector, who saw the doubling as an interesting oddity but not a game-changer. But the numismatic community thrived on stories of rarity and uniqueness. Word spread, and demand began to outpace supply. By the mid-1990s, auction listings started appearing, with graded examples fetching hundreds of dollars. The coin that had been just spare change was now a sought-after curiosity. Each new sale added a layer to the coin's growing mystique, an everyday dime transformed by a subtle minting mishap into a treasure of scarcity. But the value didn't climb in a straight line. Like many collectibles, it swayed with market trends, the broader economy, and the ever-shifting tastes of collectors. Periods of high interest drove prices upward, only to be tempered by times when attention waned. Still, the allure of the 1975 double-die dime endured, a small window into the quirks of minting history and the chance that perfection sometimes slips. Then came a twist that deepened the intrigue. One afternoon, Michael received a call from a fellow numismatist who had recently acquired a 1975 dime showing a different, more dramatic error. Unlike the subtle double die, this coin bore what appeared to be a striking collar mishap. The edge, instead of its familiar reeded texture, was partially smooth, with faint remnants of reeds pressed erratically along its circumference. This error had distorted the coin's shape just enough to catch attention, but not enough to make it unusable. Michael knew collar errors were among the rarest minting anomalies. The collar, an encircling metal ring that shapes the coin's edge during striking, occasionally fails or slips, creating off-center strikes or edge distortions. This new find suggested that the 1975 dime might harbor not one, but multiple varieties of collectible errors, some even rarer than the double die. Together, they analyzed the coin. Under magnification, they noticed an even stranger phenomenon. On the reverse, near the torch, an unusual raised bump looked almost like a die chip, an extra metal blob where none should be. This imperfection had subtly altered the coin's design, making it a hybrid error specimen, combining collar issues with die damage and the double die characteristics. This discovery sent ripples through collector circles. Was it possible that 1975 dimes held a hidden treasure trove of errors, waiting to be uncovered? The implications fascinated experts and hobbyists alike. Michael's earlier find now seemed just one piece of a larger puzzle. The unique combination of doubling, collar errors, and die chips on 1975 dimes elevated their status from mere curiosities to emblematic tokens of minting unpredictability. Collectors eagerly sought coins exhibiting these traits, competing fiercely at auctions and private sales. As word spread, the coin's value surged dramatically. From modest premiums, top-grade examples crossed into the thousands. The rarest variants, those combining multiple errors, broke records for dimes. Each sale felt like another chapter in an unfolding saga, proof that even the smallest, most overlooked coin could harbor stories of surprise and value. But the story did not end there. A surprising twist came from the discovery of a contemporary document deep in Mint archives, a technician's log from 1975 that detailed an incident during the hubbing process. It described a momentary misalignment caused by a worn press mechanism, coinciding precisely with the production run of the dimes bearing doubling errors. This log provided concrete evidence linking the errors to a specific mechanical fault, adding historical depth to the coin's mystery. Moreover, the report mentioned that the collar rings had been replaced during that same period due to unusual wear. This explained the presence of collar-related errors on some 1975 dimes. The once mundane dime was now a living record of minting history, a tangible remnant of a moment when technology faltered, leaving behind collectible testimony. For Michael, the journey had come full circle. What began as a casual examination of a worn dime evolved into a deep dive into the hidden complexities of coin production, the excitement of discovery, and the appreciation of rarity born from imperfection. The 1975 double-die dime and its companion error varieties were more than just currency, they were stories struck in metal, each coin a unique witness to an era and its secrets. Collectors today continue to search for these elusive specimens, aware that every 1975 dime in their hands could hold the key to uncovering another chapter of this fascinating saga. And as long as those coins circulate hidden in pockets, drawers, and collections, the mystery and allure of the 1975 US dime error will endure, a testament to the unexpected beauty found in mistakes and the relentless passion of those who seek them out. The year 1982 found the United States in a period of transition and cautious optimism. The country was grappling with economic challenges, high inflation, rising interest rates, and an unemployment rate that hovered near double digits. Yet amid these struggles, the American spirit of resilience and innovation was palpable. In homes, workplaces, and government offices, people sought ways to steady the ship, look forward, and adapt to a rapidly changing world. Somewhere within this broader story, in the quiet halls of the U.S. Mint, thousands upon thousands of coins were being struck, each destined to circulate, to change hands, to become a small piece of everyday life. Among these coins was the humble dime. The design had long been familiar and iconic. The profile of Franklin D. Roosevelt, etched with dignity and resolve, adorned the obverse, while the reverse displayed the radiant torch of liberty flanked by olive and oak branches. This design had been consistent since 1946, a tribute to a president revered for guiding the nation through turbulent times. In 1982, the dime was minted in enormous numbers, produced primarily at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, meant for daily commerce, pocket change, and a routine part of transactions small and large. The production was, as always, a precision-driven process, one that relied on the flawless alignment of dies, careful striking pressure, and quality control measures designed to prevent errors. Yet, as with all complex machinery and human oversight, mistakes occasionally slipped through. One such error, subtle but striking, was about to emerge from the mintage of 1982 dimes, a flaw that would quietly capture the attention of collectors decades later. John, a longtime numismatist with an eye for detail, was sifting through a collection of circulated coins he had acquired from an estate sale. His usual passion was for coins with unique mint marks or limited editions, but on this day, a particular 1982 dime caught his attention, not for its shininess or rarity, but for something unusual about its design. Holding the coin up to the light and peering closely through his magnifying loupe, John noticed a faint but unmistakable doubling effect on the lettering of the word Liberty, and the date itself. His pulse quickened. John had seen double die errors before, coins where the die had been impressed more than once with a slight shift, resulting in doubled images, letters, or numbers that created a ghostly outline alongside the primary design. These errors were prized among collectors for their uniqueness and rarity. But to find one in a 1982 dime? That was uncommon. John's mind raced through his mental catalog. Was this a known variety? Had it been documented in the key reference guides? The more he examined, the more convinced he became that this was something special, a subtle double die error, rarely seen and often overlooked because the doubling was not dramatic, but delicate and precise. He began cross-referencing coin databases, digging through auction archives, and engaging with fellow collectors in online forums and local clubs. Most sources reference major double die coins from earlier decades, like the famous 1955 Lincoln cent or the 1972 quarter. The 1982 dime, by contrast, was largely absent from mainstream double die listings. It appeared that this variant had slipped beneath the radar, a hidden gem waiting to be fully recognized. John's curiosity shifted into determination. Over months, he scoured rolls of dimes from the same year, hunting for additional examples. Each new specimen revealed subtle nuances, some with clearer doubling, others barely noticeable, yet all sharing the telltale signs of the same minting anomaly. His collection began to grow, and with it, the narrative of the 1982 double die dime began to take shape. Word spread slowly at first. A handful of collectors and numismatists began to take notice, intrigued by the emergence of this once-ignored variety. Dealers cautiously added it to their listings, often describing it as a rare double die with a modest premium. The excitement built quietly, like a low rumble beneath the surface of the hobby. The value of these error coins reflected this gradual awareness. At the start, they sold for only a slight increase above face value, rarely more than $10 or $20, a token acknowledgement of their uniqueness. But as more collectors joined the hunt and demand increased, prices climbed steadily. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, well-graded specimens commanded several $100s at auction. The once common dime was transforming into a prized collectible, yet the market was far from stable. The price fluctuated with broader trends in the coin world: the surge of interest in error coins, the rise of online auction platforms, and the fluctuating enthusiasm of collectors who sometimes favored other rarities. Despite these swings, The 1982 double die dime maintained a persistent allure, its story growing richer as experts pieced together more of its minting history. But then an unexpected development added new layers of fascination. While examining an especially well-preserved 1982 dime, John noticed another anomaly, a faint but unusual ridge along the rim, a narrow raised band that disrupted the coin's normally smooth edge. At first, it seemed insignificant, but further inspection revealed a form of die clash, a phenomenon where the dies struck each other without a planchet in between, causing part of the design from one die to transfer onto the other. This clash created ghost-like images in the fields of the coin, faint outlines of Roosevelt's profile where none should be. These ghost images, combined with the doubling on the obverse lettering, formed a unique hybrid error, one that was virtually unheard of for dimes from this era. More fascinating still was the discovery that this die clash was localized to a very narrow batch of coins, suggesting a limited time frame during the striking process, when the minting equipment was misaligned or improperly handled. This revelation made these coins extraordinarily rare, pushing their desirability beyond the earlier double die examples. The plot thickened further when archival documents from the Philadelphia Mint surfaced. Internal records indicated that in early 1982, a minor maintenance oversight had caused a misalignment in the coin press, which was quickly corrected, but not before a limited number of dimes were struck under these flawed conditions. This nugget of historical data gave concrete context to the mysterious error coins. Collectors, including John, realized they were looking at a coin that was not only a numismatic curiosity, but also a tangible piece of minting history, evidence of the human and mechanical imperfections behind what many assumed was a perfectly automated process. The market responded accordingly. These hybrid error coins bearing doubling, die clash, ghosting, and rim irregularities became the ultimate prize for collectors of 1982 dimes. Their value soared, with pristine examples commanding thousands of dollars in graded auctions. The story of the 1982 dime error evolved from a footnote to a centerpiece in error coin collecting. Yet amid the excitement, John found himself reflecting on the paradox at the heart of this story. A small imperfection, born from a momentary lapse or mechanical glitch, had transformed an everyday object into a symbol of rarity, history, and human fallibility. Each coin was a miniature narrative, capturing a fleeting imperfection frozen in metal. The 1982 dime error was more than a collector's item. It was a reminder that even the most routine things could carry hidden stories waiting for someone curious enough to look closely, patient enough to seek, and passionate enough to share. And so the search continues. Each roll opened, each coin examined, could unveil another piece of this ongoing mystery. For collectors like John, the thrill lies not just in the value or the rarity, but in the unfolding story itself, a story of chance, error, discovery, and the unexpected ways history imprints itself, one coin at a time.